spaceship. I don't really know why I chose this topic when I signed up to do this. But I think it goes to something which has been with me for a long time. It's a personal reason that I decided to choose teaching as a career. So what do I mean by the school is spaceship? Obviously, I don't expect a school building to work the way a spaceship does, or us to explore space in a literal sense. But I do mean space exploration, and I'm going to come to the term space and what I mean by that. And that's really the personal reason for why I wanted to get into teaching. When I was a kid, I didn't want to be a teacher, I wanted to be a starship captain, not an astronaut. My dad said, if you work really hard, you can be an astronaut. I said, I don't want to be an astronaut, I want to be a starship captain. I want to eat food out of tubes and sit in a tin can in orbit. And he said, starship captain doesn't exist. If you work hard, you can be an accountant. Some arguments not going anywhere. 1982, a lot of different things came onto the scene that made me forget about starship captains for a while. More important things. And then this happened, but I won't go there with this right now. We'll come back to this later if we have time. I'll just say that this guy had a feeling of responsibility about education, which really influenced me at a deep level. So that was 1982, now we're in 1987, and starships had a resurgence in the mainstream. Science fiction made a huge comeback, and that was really good for me. So 5 years later, the next generation came, and one of the actors, who was a jobbing actor who didn't really know anything about science fiction or life on a spaceship, asked Gene Roddenberry, what's life like in the 24th century? So this was 5 years later, and his answer was this. And again, this made me really think about education, even though I was still a kid and I really wasn't that concerned about teaching, but I thought there's definitely a connection here. So that was 1987, and I forgot about the subject again, and then this guy came onto the scene. Some of you might know him, some of you might read some of his stuff. I didn't. This is the book he wrote. I didn't read that book. Has anyone read this?
No, but I know it.
Well, I tried reading, it was very boring, so I stopped. And then I was only like 12 at the time. But I tell you what I did read, which came out the same year. So I thought, this is a great start for my career in education. But I thought this is probably not the most academically robust book I could read. So I thought I'd have to expand my bibliosphere a bit. So then I moved on to this. And then once I read this, I realized that there was really something in the whole starship life, Starfleet, cadet, academy analogy. So I want to explore that, and that really, to me, is the heart of the matter. I realized that I wasn't going to be a Starfleet captain by now. But I thought that maybe the children that I might educate at some future date, we don't know what the future holds, maybe they will be the Starfleet captains of the future. And I still believe that. And this is what I was thinking about: experimentation, exploration, and constructing knowledge. And these are the things that I'm learning while I'm on my course at this university. So again, this circle has come full circle. Starfleet cadets begin their lives, as the Secretary of State called it, possibly in a shady olive grove. I don't want to push the analogy too far. But I really believe that. Whatever your feelings are about the Secretary of State, I think the metaphor does apply. You don't have to have a negative connotation when you think about an academy. So for me, exploring supreme intelligence, which is like my central concern, has connections to RE, which has a connection to the Prime Directive and off-world ethics, which has a connection to PSHE and socially responsible star travel, of course, making sure you don't ruin other planets, which to me is geography, which is just another word for astrogation. And you should be able to understand if you know that semantically using the simple view of reading, not systematic synthetic, which to me is just, you know, or MFL, which of course all comes from Latin, and which leads us to science because of the science vocabulary in Latin, and thank God it's still a core subject, which leads us back to the beginning: experimentation, exploration, and constructing knowledge. So for me, these analogies are real. They're not as tenuous as they sound maybe to somebody who doesn't watch Star Trek or doesn't like science fiction. You don't have to watch Star Trek to understand what this means to somebody who loves science fiction and wants to bring it into the classroom. And we've seen rotating teapots in space and building your own monsters. This doesn't really seem that far. Oh, and this is a book that the Secretary of State used at his speech at BET to make an analogy between what's happening in school and what used to be an academic system that's sort of based on the way we train troops, just to show that I'm not the only person who believes that. Even at this very university, we use academic texts that have some bearing on the way we train children and the way servicemen or service people are trained in the armed or naval forces. So again, the analogy is clear to me. So we come back to this idea. So now we can listen to Mr. Nimoy.
The impact is enormous, and I do feel a sense of responsibility. I think it's a positive impact. I think it opens the imagination to ideas, scientific ideas, philosophical ideas, social ideas, and I think hopeful is the key word. Hopeful and futuristic. We're here, we exist. There is reason to be motivated and to try to learn and to do things and to work together and to explore. For me, I think the series is one that builds up over long periods of time for a couple of good reasons. In the first place, a young child, a 10, 12-year-old child, can watch the show and be entertained by the adventure of it. And then 6 or 8 years later, to see the same episode again and realize that there was an idea in that adventure that had to do with something that perhaps a 10 or 12-year-old might not be aware of, but they discover again later as they grow. I think that's one of the reasons people enjoy seeing the show over and over again, to pick up on ideas that perhaps they weren't aware of at their age.
Okay, so that was 1982, and we're in 2012 now, so that was 20 years ago. And for 20 years, that speech has haunted me. And I finally have an opportunity to how do I, okay. To go back to this reason, Nimoy's responsibility, and just to look at exactly what he was saying. I think I have, oh, what's happened?
Corner of the screen. Back to the browser.
Full screen. Have I reached the end?
Forward arrow. Forward arrow down the bottom. In the middle.
Oh yeah. This is the problem with Prezi. If you make things too small, you
Oh,
can't
yes.
use.
It's there.
There's another analogy for outer space.
Forward to go.
Oh yeah. So this really is the summary of what I was trying to say. And as he puts it, to open the imagination to ideas, hopeful and futuristic. We're here, we exist, to be motivated, to try to learn, to do things that work together, and to explore. And that's just a guy who acted in a science fiction show in the 60s. And for me, that is a mission statement of a school that could boldly go where no school has gone before, the kind of school that I would love to work at some point in the future. Thank you.
Lovely.